World-class lessons from the real estate industry's top 1%, empowering agents to think bigger and do more to create life by design. You get access to exclusive interviews with top producing real estate professionals. Listen in as we talk about their journey in the business, best practices, and lessons learned. Hosted by Kiro Nasrallah and John Scipione.
I mean, one thing that we always say in our office is just action is better than perfection, right?
This is Light It Up with Lighthouse Residential.
All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Light It Up podcast. We are super excited to have with us today Miss Monique Walker out of Phoenix, Scottsdale area. She's sold over 2,000 homes in her career, with about 200 units closed just last year, representing about $89 million in total volume.
Wow.
Monique, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I am so excited to make everybody a better realtor today and help them make more money faster today.
Baby.
You know, what I didn't share with you is that you are actually the first woman, female guest on the show.
Oh my gosh, that's the coolest.
Welcome,
yes.
welcome to the
that
Boys
makes
Club.
Me, wow,
But
that makes
no
me proud.
coaches.
Thank you.
No, it honestly, you know, we obviously are always generating a list of people we'd love to have on the show, and your name came through on top for sure. So
Sweet.
we're always trying to bring people onto the platform that will bring, you know, enormous value to other realtors, to other people in the real estate industry, and you know, it was an easy decision to have you here. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Excellent. Let's do it.
Awesome. Let's jump into it. I mean, I would say, you know, as we were chatting and sort of talking about different topics that we could discuss today, you know, Kiro and I found it really, really interesting that, you know, we gave you a blank slate and said, Monique, let's talk about and go deep on anything that you want. And you said, let's stick to the fundamentals and you know, the things that we all sort of built our business on, right?
Absolutely.
So I think
I still
people
use it today.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I think people will find it really, really empowering to hear that one of the main things we wanted to talk about was just the power of prospecting.
Yes, the P word that
That a lot of
word
people
that
avoid.
a lot of realtors avoid and don't like to talk about and call it a whole bunch of other things like lead generation,
Yep.
talking to people, and all those things are true. I really did build my business on prospecting, and now that I have a team, so I have 4 buyer's agents, I'm teaching them how to be prospectors. I'm teaching them how to make it a priority and the first thing that they do in their day, which is now becoming more of a priority for me again. So it's kind of lit my prospecting fire up again. So I'm really, I wrote down a whole bunch of thoughts around the power of prospecting. So want me to dive in there?
Yeah,
Please.
of course.
Okay.
Jump in.
All right, perfect. So, hey, the prospecting is always best to do, of course, in the morning. That's when we're the freshest. That's when you don't have fires to put out. That's when less people are going to need you, right? So you want to get your prospecting done in the morning. And this is a time to generate appointments. It's not just to make contacts. It's not just to, you know, I have a little dash every time I talk to somebody. It's not about that, though. It's number 1, it's generating appointments, right?
Absolutely.
And then number 2 is generating leads, right? Which will eventually go into, you know, an appointment set. So during that time, I'm constantly telling my agents, do not research, do not run comps.
Right.
When I hear a room full of silence, I'm going, what are you doing, right? You are dialing, if that's okay to be silent during that time, right? But stay laser focused on the objective, which is actually, you know, to make those calls, have those conversations. And then number 2 is, of course, you want to hit your daily prospecting goal every single day that you prospect, right? So that's secondary to setting the appointments, but also just as important, right?
Yeah.
Next, it's also gives you great, I was telling my real estate coach, which I still have through the Mike Ferry organization, and one of the things, I'm not necessarily generating a ton of expired and canceled appointments today, but you guys, I get amazing information. So I feel like I am the news center for real estate in my area. I can tell you what the public is doing in Phoenix, Arizona right now. What's the date today? May 20th, 2022. I have the most updated information. I know what sellers are thinking. I know why they're not or removing their houses from the market. I know what investors are buying. What are the most popular investors, right? Because that's where expired and cancels are going to.
Yeah.
So I love hearing the trends that are happening while I'm making those phone calls, and then I can educate my clients.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's so empowering.
That's an interesting perspective. I don't think I've ever really looked at it that way. And I think maybe the other way to think of it, at least for me, is maybe when you've stepped back from prospecting like we have a little bit. We're still hitting the phones every morning. Don't worry. I almost feel bad just saying it.
Yeah, right.
I feel the guilt.
Right.
But maybe not the 4 consecutive hours every single day. But when you've stepped back from it a little bit, you actually sort of realize you're having less conversations about what's going on like today, right? So were you saying that by still calling a lot of those lead sources, you're still able to sort of hear it direct from like the horse's mouth? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I continue to hear the same types of things.
Yeah.
Then I understand, obviously this is a trend. This is what's happening.
Yep.
Right? And we have in the Phoenix Scottsdale market, we have so many investors that first come to our market to try something out, whether it's like the cash offer programs, whatever kind of fix and flip business that you're into. So I'm hearing about those new companies coming into the market and their success rate.
Yeah.
That morning or when I'm calling expired and cancels. It's a little bit of a side note that I just realized, because every time I learn something, I'm pausing and telling the team, hey, do you guys know that whatever investors in the market, and this is what's happening, or here's what expired and cancels are not liking. And what negative comments are saying about certain companies, and they're telling me over and over and over again. And then I can educate, obviously, my next appointment that's thinking about going with them. Like, hey, just so that you know, this is what I heard from 5 other agents.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways.
Well, it keeps you relevant,
Absolutely. Yep, 100%. And I think it's important, you guys, I know you know this, and for our audiences, know your numbers. It is taking me 43 conversations or contacts to get a listing.
That's awesome.
43. So would you say that's high, that's more or less than what you
That's a little less.
Yeah.
That's a little less. It was in the 50s, and now I'm decreasing that number, which is awesome. So it keeps me inspired to go like, okay, that listing is coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
Get your numbers all ready the night before, right? So you're not scrambling in the morning to think who you're calling. It's so important to get prepared the night before. Makes the morning so easy and calm, so you can just dive right into it.
Yep.
And find an accountability partner. You guys, I just got one this week, one of my agents.
Yeah.
And I put a bet. If you don't make your contacts, which is, 20 contacts, you owe me 50. And if I don't call my 20 past clients every single day, I owe you 50. It's so fun.
Yeah.
So guess who's doing their 20 past clients every day?
Every single day.
Every day. I don't want to lose.
I love that. See, again, it's so great to hear. Like, I think selfishly, this will just be for me, this episode. No, it just for me to hear somebody, who's been doing it as long as you have, right? You're only a few years ahead of me, but just to still hit the basics and do that every day, because I think a lot of people come into the industry, especially, these newer, younger, maybe some millennial agents, and their immediate response, their immediate thought is like, I have to go right into the marketing or right into the social media. And I think they probably look up at some more senior veteran agents and say, oh, well, Monique's been in the business for, would you say 18 or 19 years now, and those deals must just fall into her lap, right? She doesn't even have to work for them anymore. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's deals that come to you, right? Like everybody else.
Right, exactly.
Because you've been doing it long enough, but you're still out there hunting every day, right? Because your goal is huge.
It's a huge goal. So of course I work on the marketing. Of course I work on leveraging. Of course I'm still building a team. But I know that I'm going to serve my team better if I'm still generating. I'm still relevant.
Yep.
Right? I'm still having those prospecting conversations. And you guys really, like I'm 44. I'm super young in my mind. I think I still am.
Yes, you are.
And I have so much energy. Like I really do think I can do it all. And why not? I like the money and all the fun things that we could get to do with it.
Of course.
So
One of
Yeah.
the things that you said that I think is interesting is when you go from an independent agent to someone operating a team and trying to teach, it's like a different whirlwind, right? I think you learn more teaching for yourself, but then it's aggravating when it doesn't click the way it clicks for you, for others. And that's like a struggle that I
Sure.
think that we deal with a lot. What are some things that you have gone through or some things that you've learned to be able to transmit what's in your brain into theirs?
I mean, let's talk about prospecting. I just looked at my numbers analyzer like for the last 19 years, and it doesn't happen overnight, nor does it happen in a couple months or in a year. This takes like a decade really to build. So I was telling my agents that start small. Don't start perhaps with my goal, which is now doing 30 contacts, or before it was 40 or 50. This is a muscle. It's a prospecting muscle, right? And it gets fatigued if you don't, well, you've never used it, right? So you've got to build it up. And the only way to do it is by committing to a smaller number and then doing it every single day. And then do it for a full month. After you do 20 contacts for a full month, then get up to 22. And then do that for a full month. And you're just going to make that prospecting muscle stronger, and it's going to feel easier, and you're not going to be as fatigued, right? So, and then you're going to find some, I know this is crazy, but some joy in it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have some really cool conversations, and you're going to build some new relationships, and then you're going to start getting listings. So although my team is far from doing what I do, it's so neat to see, one of them is on her 4th day of making 20 contacts. And I'm like, that's super cool. That makes me happy. And it's getting her to her goal faster. So, start small.
I love that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Are the agents on your team, so I know that you obviously shared with them the success stories, and they can obviously see it firsthand. Are they expected to be prospecting every single morning? Like, do you guys all join each other in the office and do it together?
Yeah, we only do it once a week together.
Yeah.
But Monday through Thursday, so that's my new schedule, is I hit it hard Monday through Thursday, and I'm keeping them accountable. So, and we have a 30-minute call Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to make sure that they are doing their 20,
yeah.
and then talk about some of their wins, some of their gains. And yeah, that's part of, I just read, or we're actually reading the Gap and the Gain book. Everybody needs to read it. It's really a mindset shift. And part of the question in the book was, you feel successful when, right? And
Yeah.
so everybody wrote down their things. And a lot of them wrote, I feel successful when I've made my contacts.
Yeah.
So that made Monique Walker really happy because now they're taking ownership. Now they see the value.
Well, I think it's one of the most important lessons I think I learned was that once you start connecting the dots, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what was it, Kathy Anderson used to always tell us, like the green balls, right, on your numbers analyzer.
Yep.
But you want to connect the dots between the number of contacts you make or the conversations that you have with the number of transactions you want to do, right? And like you had said before, I need to make 43 contacts or conversations to get a signed listing agreement. So, connecting those dots, and when you start realizing like, hey, I really slacked off, or hey, I really put in an extra effort this week or this month, and I'm seeing the results, that's when you sort of have that like aha moment. And
Yes.
that's what always paid off for me, is when you really finally connected the dots. Because otherwise, like you said before, you're not going in just to check a dash off on your paper that you made the contacts. You're really going in looking for that appointment each and every day.
And John, you can only connect the dots when you're tracking your numbers.
Right. Right.
So I encourage everyone to do that, whether it's on an Excel spreadsheet or, some sort of, numbers analyzer like through the Mike Ferry organization. Because my coach today I said, Tony, my kids get out of school next week. Does that mean I get out of work too? Because in my mind, that's where my mind's going, right?
Yep.
And he's like, oh yeah, I see that you have mommy summer brain typically between June and August.
Yep.
So I said, oh crap. Like, I don't want that to happen this summer because I really feel the market's shifting and it's a huge opportunity for us, committed and, tenured agents, if you will, where we're going to get more listings. We're going to see more opportunities on traditional and investment, opportunities.
Absolutely.
So again, going back to like connecting the dots so you can see the trends on how you perform.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. It's fun stuff. Hey, you guys, I'm not an analytical at all, but I can geek out on my numbers like any analytical.
Well, I think it's just so important to track them just so you know where to go. And the analogy I always give our team or just anybody that we're speaking with is like, and I know you're like a fitness freak, so you might appreciate this.
True.
Oh, think about who's the biggest guy in your like local gym, right? The biggest bodybuilder, the guy with like that really thin like tank top, right? What does he always carry around in the gym with him?
Water.
A notebook, right? The notebook,
A
and
notebook. Okay.
the pen, right?
Darn.
Yeah.
Notebook and the pen, because they're tracking like, I don't even know what he's writing in there, but
How many
100 reps,
weights, everything.
a lot more weight than I did.
Yep.
And how much water am I drinking?
And how
There
much
you go.
water he's drinking. But what I'm getting at is like anybody who's really, really doing something at a very, very high level is just always trying to improve, whether it's a runner trying to take a couple seconds off their mile or just trying to get a few inches ahead each and every time. So I think it's
100%.
it's super important, and you can't, what do we always say? Like
What you can track, you can improve,
what you track, you can improve. So
Yep.
which is beautiful. You said a lot of golden nuggets there, and I hope that people listening to this actually wrote that down. But when you look at like when you sum up everything that was said, if you're making commitments to yourself about your schedule and the things that you need to accomplish in your schedule, if you accomplish them, you feel really good about yourself, and then you're approaching everything with confidence, and confidence is competence. So you know what you're saying on the phone, you're more aggressive, you're well-rounded. But then when you lie to yourself, and unfortunately we're in an industry where it can get very boring and mundane, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to try to be ambitious today. But sometimes that can work against you if you don't stick to the fundamentals, which is what you've done incredibly, is by constantly focusing on that and starting with the small. We tell our agents sometimes, we're like, all right, let's try to do 30, 40, 50. We'll make a bet for that, but that's unrealistic sometimes. Like you just said, starting small is probably the best way to go about it, which is beautiful.
Yeah. And limiting the amount, kind of going into what we're going to talk about second is having a schedule. And you guys, it's not prospecting all day. It's just prospecting for 3 to 4 hours. So get her done in that time frame, and that way you can tuck that away and go on to the more fun stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
Your workouts, your listing appointments, right?
Yep.
Your connections, or taking your clients out to lunch and dinner. Like, that's just a small part of your day, and it feels like you were saying, it feels so good when you're finished with it.
Yeah.
Not when it's like when it lingers on all day. Isn't that just the worst feeling?
The worst.
Mentally, it's draining.
Well, I think we're all just so highly competitive,
Yep.
or at least a lot of us are, that when you make that commitment to yourself, that hey, listen, I know to get my listing appointment, I need to make those 43 contacts, right? And so you say to yourself, hey, listen, I have to make a minimum standard of at least 30 a day, or whatever your number may be. If something got in the way and you only ended up making 10, or even worse, didn't make any of your contacts, or haven't started it yet, or started late, I like walk around like a weight on my shoulders, where I'm like,
Exactly.
or God forbid you go home and didn't make any of your contacts, or missed your goal by a lot. I do, go home with guilt.
Yeah.
It sounds so nerdy, but it really is a competitive business, and it's a contact sport. And when you didn't make any contacts, you feel like you didn't work that day.
Yeah.
And then tell your kids what your goal is. So then they ask you when you get home, and it's the forced to tell your children you didn't do what you said you were going to do.
But why? But why, Mom? But why?
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
You said you were.
So let's jump into the second topic we wanted to talk about, the protecting that schedule. Walk us through, what I guess, like, walk us through what your schedule looks like, how it's evolved over the years, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it was a lot
because
more
it has-
strict, and there's some
It's
things.
changed.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, but we as realtors, we think independent contractors, freedom, flexibility. I'm constantly talking to agents, like that's why I got into the business. I don't know about you guys. I didn't get into the business. That wasn't my main motivation. My main motivation is I wanted to work hard and I wanted to see my results and control that.
Yep.
Right? So I'm like, corporate America, the more I work, I'm like, these little bonuses aren't working out very well, right? So you've got to rethink that. So I speak to agents all the time that are just too focused on the flexibility. And you know what? They're typically doing 10, 15, 20 transactions, and honestly, they're broke, right? So at the same time, it's your life, it's your goals, right? You get to choose what you want. So create the business plan, which in your business plan is your schedule, right? So if you want to make $100,000, right, then start working backwards. So hopefully some of the agents that are listening to this know what their average commission check is, right? And can start saying, okay, so if I do want to make $100,000, and my average commission check is $10,000, how many transactions do I need to close a month, to make that happen, right?
I love that.
Yep.
After all of my expenses, the broker's cut and maybe the team cut,
Yep.
right? So create that schedule, and whether you're making $100,000 or hopefully $2 million,
Right.
the schedule is really similar,
Yeah.
right? You're just usually a little more efficient, the more money you make because you've been doing it longer.
Right.
But the schedule's the same. Like number one, you wake up, you want to do some sort of exercise, whether it's stretching. I don't work out really until like midday. That's just my schedule. Once I had kids, I used to spin and do my exercise at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. But then the kids came along and I thought, I want to hang out with them. I'm going to move that over to noon, right? And
Nice.
that just has worked for me for 13 years. So, but anyways, go back to wake up at 6 a.m., stretch. And that's my time to get this right.
Yep.
So the mind right. I pray. I tell God all the things that I'm thankful for because there's so much. And then I tell him what I want. And then that starts me visualizing, what life looks like that day and in the future, right?
I love that.
And then 7:30 for me is like I got to be on the phones. I feel awesome when I'm on the phones at 7:30. And then I prospect until 11. And it used to be that I prospect until 12 or even 12:30, so 7:30 to 11. And then I have my team call and we role play at 11. Again, just a little different than other people.
Yep.
And then I like to work out at noon. And then my favorite part of my day is when I get to go on listing appointments. And that's typically at 1 o'clock and at 3 o'clock. And that's the day, nice and simple. There's
great.
a lot of other details that, you'll want to implement, your admin and your research time and your CMAs.
Yep.
But bulk of it is just that.
Yeah. I think the two things that was ever told to me regarding time management that like really kind of changed everything is one, your day starts the night before. And number two, you trade your time for money. So are you spending your time wisely? Right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think it's empowering because as Monique is our first woman on the podcast, women have a lot more responsibilities as a mother, right? Versus like a guy. And you have a hard stop at what time for your schedule? Or is it stretch on?
So usually I'm home before 5:30. Yeah, like I get pretty grumpy when I have to go on appointments at 6 p.m. So I avoid it at all costs.
And I think that's incredible.
And you know what? It doesn't come up very often because if you tell the seller, hey, does 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock work? They're usually just thinking about those two times.
Yeah.
So it's just you managing yourself and other people.
Which is incredible for you to be able to do all of that in one day at 5. Like, we're in the office sometimes until like 8 o'clock, and we're just like, what did we do today? It's like we need to be more effective in these times because the task at hand expands to the time allotted. So,
Yeah. And I'm just like adamant and going back to the gap and the gain. I'm successful when I'm controlling my schedule. Right? So there's so much freedom in adhering to the schedule and not veering, because then when I do get home, let's just say at 5 o'clock, I'm guilt free.
Yep.
I'm like, phone is, on the desk, and I'm going to go hang with the kids, or I'm going to go do my thing. Maybe I'll go play tennis, do yoga. But there's that freedom of now enjoying my time. But it's hard to enjoy my time if I haven't done the work that I'm supposed to do and done what I said I was going to do in my schedule. So there's so much freedom in working your schedule.
I love that.
Yeah. What's some advice you would give to maybe somebody who's new to the business about sort of setting that schedule and setting that ideal morning?
Yeah. So it's so important for you. So say you are, you have a partner, a spouse and kids, and you have a mom and a dad
Right.
and cousins. Tell everybody that you know about your schedule.
Yeah.
Because that way they'll support you and they'll stop calling you
Yep.
and texting you during that time. Right? So they want to support you. So just share it with them, right? And then if you are in an office, typically, and you can close your door and you just like have a sign out, like I'm prospecting, or, whatever you want to say. I'm generating business, like, no contact at the moment. So that's the first part. And then 2 is or before that is you've got to write things down, right? You've got to write things down and then stick to the schedule. Of course, hopefully everybody on this call has mentors, whether it's you two or whether it's a real estate coach. So it's being open to being coached and accountable, being open to that. It's a good thing. It hurts. We've all been there and done that where we're like, oh my gosh, I have to call my accountability or my coach, and I've done half of what I said I'm going to do. But that's just part of the process. I could keep going on and on, but there you go.
I think it's empowering, and this is going to sidetrack it a little bit. Monique, you started when you were 25, right? More or less in that.
Yes.
How long
Yes.
did it take you to hit your first million?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, because I just checked that today. I never knew this number until today. Isn't that cool?
Hit it.
So it took me so long. It took me 13 years.
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
But it's nothing worth striving for takes a short amount of time, right? So this is a journey. It's a total marathon, and I'm still in it because now I'm like, okay, so can I make 2?
Exactly.
Right? And that's super, super fun. And I have lots of people around me that had the same goal, and to do that all together and to be able to have those conversations. You want to make sure that you've got a really good support group around you so that you can share those conversations, because chances are your friends in other industries probably aren't making the kind of money that you're going to be making.
Yep.
So get really excited because it's coming if you
love that.
follow this plan.
Who said it that the first million is hard, but the second one is inevitable? The first million is difficult. The second one is inevitable. It's like,
I like
once
that.
you learn how to do it the first time, it's easier to do it the second time around. And by surrounding yourself by bigger thinkers, you can constantly be like, all right, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Let's try to do 2, which is pretty
Cairo,
cool.
you are absolutely 100% right. Now it becomes your minimum standard.
Yep.
It's just now who you are.
Yeah, that's who you become.
It's who you become, exactly. Like your actions, right? It's not like we are a million, right? But that's your level of service, right? That's your standard.
I love it.
Talk to us a little bit about how you got into this whole. Obviously, been in Mike Ferry for years, right? But how did you get into that whole crazy world? And you know, a lot of people who don't sort of speak the language that we're all talking about right now, you know, sort of say, well, how did you even know that I should start my morning by prospecting, and what turns you on to you know, this way to look at the business?
Sure. So I was a competitive tennis player, still love playing tennis. And I started at 9, and I always had amazing coaches. Just like all great athletes and high level, right?
Yeah.
Business people have coaches. I had one since I was 9, and I went out and played at the University of Arizona, you know, on a full ride, having great coaches. So when I started to interview for brokerages, I got so fortunate because my broker was a Mike Ferry trained coach.
Awesome.
Or Mike Ferry trained agent, I'm sorry. Yep. And she just said, hey, here are the tapes back in the day when they actually had tapes.
Yep.
And
I have those
scripts.
tapes. Yeah.
Right? And first, like, listen to this, and then, you know, read all, you know, this packet, and there's a blueprint for your business. And I thought, well, that's fantastic. Well, then I got invited. She invited me to go to a conference for a Mike Ferry conference, and I sat way, you know, in the back,
Yep.
and I saw all the people on stage, and I thought, holy moly, like, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
You know, even though I've only sold like 10 properties so far, like I want to get there. Like that coming from, so my mother was Colombian, so I'm first generation American.
Oh, wow, awesome.
I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, no siblings. You know, she was you know, single mom. So we didn't have a lot. We had a lot of love, a lot of support, but financially we didn't have a lot. And I just thought, oh, man, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to buy a car free and clear, right? Buy homes, you know, not even like think about and stress about money, because it was a stressor in my life. Get this, when I went to college and got a scholarship and got my first stipend, which was $750 that month, I felt so rich. I was like the most amount of money I ever had in my life on a you know, a monthly basis. So that's how it all started. So going back to the coaching, it's just so important to have a coach, right?
Yeah.
To guide and direct you every week when I think, I don't need this. You know, I don't need this coaching, but I know in my mind, I'm like, I would get into complacency so fast, right? If I didn't have all you guys, because you're part of it, you know, holding me accountable, and then just continuing to grow.
Yeah, that's so powerful what you said.
I you know, it's for me, it's become almost just a different way to look at things, right? Like anything I'm considering doing, like for years I've been saying I'm going to start playing golf, and I played hockey growing up, and you'd think that golf would be second nature, but I just know that once I finally rip the Band-Aid off and start playing, I'm going to hire a coach right away, right? Like,
Right.
I don't want to struggle for 3-4 years and just be hacking up the course. I want to. I'm not saying that by hiring a coach I'm going to be a pro day one, but it's certainly going to get me there much quicker. And
that's the key, getting there much quicker.
yeah, just
Why struggle, be on struggle street for a long time when you don't have to be, when there's a blueprint.
Yeah.
exactly.
That if you follow the blueprint, you will. There's, even though I think you and us three, I think we're special, we're not at the same time, right? We just follow the plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was talking with a buddy of mine last night where, you know, I'm not even a huge football fan, but I just think of like somebody who's just so high level, like a Tom Brady, and someone of his stature. I mean, that guy's probably got 20 to 25 coaches, right? Like he doesn't just have a personal trainer. I mean, he's got and he doesn't only have like a personal chef, but he's got a nutrition coach and a health coach, and like probably even like a breathing coach, and you know, somebody who's got like you know, that much. Like now he's signed this massive deal with Fox, and right, so I'm sure he's probably even hired coaches that are helping him
Speaking
speak.
coaches, yeah.
An acting coach,
Acting
exactly.
coaches. So I mean, like that's such like a high level way to look at it, that like, you know, we can all be better in a lot of different departments.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's just
Yep,
the quicker way to get
exactly.
there.
Monique, given what you said earlier with, you know, first generation and being raised by a single mom, what's the source of your enthusiasm and energy? because it vibrates every time you're in a room, every time you're talking to somebody. Your enthusiasm and energy is just infectious.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you so much. Honestly, it goes beyond the transactions. It goes beyond the money, so because there's going to come a point in time where you're like, okay, so I not that I have enough money, but I sort of have enough money. We live way below our means. And so now it's I'm here to shine, as cheesy as this sounds. I'm here to shine God's love and light in everything that I do. And I just have such a gratitude for what I'm able to do, what I get to do, that's like the overarching mindset before, way beyond the contacts, and the money. That's my source of motivation.
Well, if you had to look at it in this way, we're always taught, and this comes full circle almost, in sales, it's about learning what to say and then delivering it with energy and enthusiasm. And sometimes the energy and enthusiasm compensates for the lack of skill. So for someone coming into the business brand new, not really, they're learning what to say, but they don't have that gratitude yet because they haven't seen results or outcomes or the blessings yet. What are some things that you would share with that person to have them either fake it or kind of channel it?
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, I think you said it because, enthusiasm is free. Right?
Yep.
And if you don't feel it, and sometimes I do have to fake it as well. So, I would say
I think I was faking it
that,
this morning. I had a few too many drinks with some buddies last night. I was telling you about the coaching conversation. And this morning, I wasn't hungover at all. I was just exhausted. And I had to make a few calls. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Get yourself together now. Let's go.
Right. And the same thing for me. Like, I might have COVID right now. But I thought to myself, this is going to be the best call because this is such great information. I'm so happy to influence others. That I know that my body's going to feel better. So along that path is that do things, number one, that make you feel better, whether it's working out, whether it's meditating, whether it's doing yoga, whether it's drinking more water. Because when you wake up, you want to feel healthy. So, for me, like I had to make a conscious decision to lessen my alcohol intake because it was really, now that I'm 44, it's affecting me negatively. And so I just thought, what's not serving me? Like, occasionally I'm like, you know what? That show isn't serving me. Like, I kind of sleep funky at night. Like eating, this is like the little details. Like, eating past 7 p.m. just doesn't help me sleep. So I'm just going to do my best to eat earlier. So you make all these little decisions like, what I'm actually eating is impacting how I feel. So I'm going to be a little more conscious of that. So just think about all those things that like don't serve you, do those less, do what serves you more. Like I'm like, hey, the more I can like meditate, and do my breathing in the morning, the more I can pray and have those like routines, the better I feel in the morning. And then the more excited I am to pick up the phone. And what happens when the opposite happens, right?
Yep.
You're like, shoot, I don't want to talk to anybody.
100%.
We should have like a
So
bomb
going back
that we press on every time like bombs are dropped because that was awesome.
So do all those things. So and then dress up, man. Dress up for success, right? Like get yourself all beautified. I had a thing that I'd maybe don't always go to the beauty salon as much as other women, but I'm like my nails are always going to be done. That's just my thing, right? Yep. Whatever makes you feel good so you can walk into a room and just, man, you might not be there yet, but you're going to look like it, right? And then you're going to put a smile on your face and then, let's go. And you'll get there.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
What you gather from all of that is that with everything that happens, it's like you have an option, something that's going to serve you in a positive manner or something that's easy but might not serve you in the best way possible. And just by making those conscious choices, your end result is just you feel better, you look better, and your day is going to be better overall, which is awesome.
Yeah, you're going to be excited, right, to follow the plan.
Yeah.
If you can feel good.
One thing that you said, and I know we said we weren't going to talk about it, but I have to know because I'm a geek when it comes to these things. You said when you pray, you visualize, and when you visualize those things, you're able to channel them. So when you're writing down things and you want to bring them to reality, how does that work and how does that look like for you?
When I'm not the best journaler, so I do think that journaling is really important, but I do have a business plan.
Okay.
And I do have a at-a-glance calendar, right? That even though I have like 5 calendars, right? Your phone, your computer. But I love
I'm
to
happy
look.
to hear somebody else say that.
Yeah. Right.
'Cause I'm like, this week I'm starting with the written one because I'm going back to that.
Yeah.
And then next week I'm like, where the hell am I supposed to be?
Right. So I have this one calendar, and it just like keeps it really simple. And it's like, how many listings do I want to take, and how many pendings do I want, right? So I think just for that, just works for me. And then I see it, every single day. And obviously, that's not on my other 2 calendars. So, keeping. I love daily, monthly, annual. I'll tell you, I'm not the best at 5 years, like 10 years. It's a little difficult for me, but I think, okay, in 10 years, perhaps I have more agents working for me, than the 4 that I have today, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm doing 60% of the production I'm doing today and giving more of my energy to the agent. So, not sure if I'm absolutely as specific as I should be, but what's worked for me is to keep it on the daily, the weekly, the monthly, the annual, because I feel like I can control those a little bit more. And then the other things, I'm like, well, God, this is what I want. And if you feel like, I should have it, like, I'm just letting I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
Right.
It just goes to show that you plan what you want ahead of time, right? So if you want something like a new car, house, whatever the case it is, you're planning ahead, and then you're breaking it down into little achievements on a regular basis.
Yes.
And keeping it in front of you and announcing it to the world, which is powerful in itself.
Yes, exactly. Can I tell you guys about a little epiphany I had last week?
Please.
Again, because we have these epiphanies, I don't know, probably every couple of years. But going back to that schedule, so my inside sales associate booked an appointment for me. And I was so excited because, of course, we got to keep our people enthused. And I was like, great job. I'm so excited for you. But 6:30? 6:30 p.m.? What? Yep. But guess what? I really hadn't shared with her. She knows my ideal, but she didn't really know like my minimum standards. And so I thought, I don't want to be grumpy when I have to go on an appointment,
It's
right?
true, yeah.
Because I'm not going to have this kind of energy, right? I'm not going to be excited about it.
Yep.
Something
but
tells me
man,
you always have this energy.
I mean, I was going to fake it. I would have faked it. That's for sure. But when it's genuine, then it's easy and fun.
Yeah.
So it's really, I encourage everybody to write down what their minimum standards are for their business, right? Like location wise, like how far out do you want to go from your office or
Right.
your house, right? Like what price point do you want to focus on? Like at what price point do you stop prospecting, clients?
Yep.
For me as a team lead, after like 30 miles, maybe I give those to my other agents. If sellers can't meet with me between 1 and 3, then I give them to another agent. How excited are they going to be to have that?
Yeah.
Right. And then again, the business, it makes me happy.
Yeah.
And then you're clear, and then you can be laser focused and tackle what you want. But before you do that, you always have to write it down and figure out what you want. So
Absolutely.
boom,
It's so
do that.
it's so true to you say grumpy at 6:30 p.m. or but see what's funny is in our market we have a lot of these like young professionals that work in Manhattan, and a lot of times they don't get home until 7 o'clock, or at least this was the story I told myself for years. But if I was stronger about my how I handle that, right? I'm sure more people would meet earlier, but I used to always get stuck with these late appointments, or at least I just put myself in that position.
Yep.
And you're not thinking clearly, and I couldn't handle objections as well as I could at a 1 o'clock or a 3 o'clock, right? When people are, trying to talk to you about commission and the length of the agreement, oftentimes my stomach would start growling, and I'd be like, all right, it's dinner time. How do we wrap this up? What do you want? All right, let's do it.
True story, Monique. He was on an appointment in the evening once, and his stomach kept growling. So then the seller goes up to him. She's like, "Are you hungry? Do you want me to get you some food?" He's like, "No, I'm good."
No, she offered to cook me rice, and I didn't take her up on it, but I did get it signed.
There you go.
All right. Hey, we know that where energy flows, focus goes.
100%.
Right? Yeah. So it all starts with knowing, where you want that energy to be placed.
Yep.
Yeah.
We were once in San Diego a couple of years ago at one of the retreats pre-COVID, and we were with one of the agents who's actually from our marketplace, and she's an absolute beast. I won't name drop. But when we were talking to her about, what's her golden or some nuggets that she had for us, and she was just like, well, it's easy. I just set really good standards. If a buyer wants to see a place and they don't want to work exclusively with me, guess what? They're going to be put into a group showing at 12 o'clock. And if they can't make it, they have 30 seconds to get there, or I'm locking the door and leaving. It's like she's an absolute beast with it, and she's able to value her time at such a high level that she's just like, I barely leave. I have runners going out because these standards this way, that standard this way. And it's so true. Like, if you don't have standards, you're tolerating whatever comes your way.
And I bet, Cairo, that seller or clients love her.
Yeah.
Buyers and sellers are like, oh, that's who I want. I want someone strong, confident, and is going to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we can get this done fast
That's so true.
and efficiently.
100%. Talk to us, Monique, about maybe one or two mistakes that you made as you were building your business. And as you look back,
Got that one.
what are some things that maybe you're like, really should have done that one a little bit differently? Can you think of anything? I know we didn't prep you for this one.
Yeah, but you know what? Mistakes. I make so many. I have so much rejection, right? And not that's not a negative, right? Because the more no's we get, the quicker to the yes.
Yep.
But it's learning from those. So I don't fail anymore. Like, I either learn or I win.
Yeah.
Right. Along those lines, I would tell you that comparison is a thief to all joy.
Absolutely.
So it's not bad to be inspired, right, by others, and there's such a fine line. So I only let myself, there's a couple people that I really respect in my market that is good for me to take a look at. But I can only do that when I'm really at a really high level mentally, very, very unattached and very happy about what I'm doing. Otherwise, focus on yourself. You are competing against yourself. Monique Walker, how can I be better than I was last year? How can I make my team stronger and more efficient, than 2021? And the times that I've tailed spin and let my mind go into a negative space, which doesn't help anybody, is when I'm thinking of what others have and then what I don't have. So then I totally miss what's in front of me. So
Wow.
Well said.
compete against yourself.
Well said. It's I don't know if we're allowed to share this, but Kiro shared this with me. I'm going to share it anyway. On the way over here,
Okay.
He was telling me, I didn't realize this. I knew Jason Penrose was in your general vicinity, but
You guys used to be in the same office.
But Kiro's
Yeah.
like, yeah, they used to be in the same office, and Jason
Right.
admitted to Kiro.
I think it was
and
on stage.
I'm hijacking the story.
Yeah, completely sabotaging it.
He was like, yeah, you know why I got into coaching? Because Monique was whooping my ass. And so I went out and hired the same coach that she had.
Wasn't that the story?
So, and what's funny is that he actually is the reason why I'm with my company today, is because he referred me over to them. So, and he's one of the people that I highly respect, is he's been kicking butt the same amount of time I have.
Yeah.
So it's good to have competition, but you got to make sure that you keep it healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, protect your mind.
I'm going to spin what you said a little bit, and you said, you can't get stuck with the comparisons, but I would say, in a sort of ironic, interesting way, the reason that we all, or a lot of us, have gotten into the business is because I compared almost like you said before, I see those people on the stage, I can do what they do. I want to do what they do. So in a way, some of that, mindset, it's like a little bit of a mindset change, where I say, because that's how I got into the business. I was a part-time agent for years doing rentals and doing a lot of rentals. And I was always in real estate finance, during the day as my main job and, being a broker at night. But finally, when I went full-time, I was like, all right, I just got to figure out what those top people in my market are doing. And I found out that all of them had coaches, some from different companies. And I picked the one that I thought was most in line with what I wanted to do. And I was like, I don't know what they're going to teach me. I have no idea what they're going to ask me to do, but it's working for those other people.
Yeah.
So
Right.
That's powerful.
That's awesome.
I think being inspired by your peers in a way where you're saying, that's amazing, I want to be similar to that, with being able to be who they are, not have what they have, is a different shift. And that takes a long time because the material aspect of it is different. But when you're able to become the person that you need to be able to achieve those material things, that's something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, hey, again, 19 years, I'm 44 years old. I am still coaching myself through that. So what I'm preaching is like I'm teaching myself, right? Where it's a fine line between all of those. In general, if we can stay in massive gratitude, while we're implementing maybe some new things into our business that somebody else, is doing and succeeding in, is probably the key. Is like staying in gratitude, not saying, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind, like, oh my gosh, but they have this and I want that. It's like, no, what are like one or two things, like keeping it simple. I'm always trying to keep it simple. Even with my kids, I coach them. My husband and I coach my girls in tennis, and it's constantly keeping the game of tennis simple. And how complicated is tennis, right?
Yeah.
Like running around, there's a damn ball and all these different surfaces, and you've got to like position yourself just perfectly to hit that yellow ball exactly where you want it.
Yeah.
But if we can keep things simple, and not get, too overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
Implement a couple two things, do it for a 30, 60, 90-day period. Kathy always said 6 months.
Yeah.
Our coach, John, and I had. It's an art, and I'm still learning it. So if you're struggling with it, it's okay.
Yeah. Monique, why do you
Part of
think
the process.
people tend to complicate it naturally?
Why?
Yeah, so like the process is simple. And the way that you said it to me, I was just like, yeah, it's simple, stupid.
Yes.
And so why do you think people naturally complicate it?
Because I used to say I love being distracted by shiny objects.
Don't we all?
And my coach is like, minimize the shiny objects, Monique. Like, what happened this week? Too many shiny objects? And like shiny objects could be, let's give you an example. There's another, like your title company marketing person says, instead of prospecting today, why don't we go do a lunch and learn? Or, there's, like I said, you only prospect for 3 to 4 hours in the morning, right?
Yep.
So make that time like a non-negotiable.
Yep.
And then do everything afterwards. So I think we get distracted. I don't necessarily think that we love the routine, and doing the same thing every day. And it's almost like being in love with the repetitive boredom of it.
Yep.
Because we connect the dots, because we have a schedule, because we have the accountability partner, because we know like at the end of the year, if I do all of these things, like boom, I'm gonna hit my 200, 300 deals and make my $1 or $2 million. So gotta keep it disciplined.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it's like anything in life. It's like once you give anybody in any sort of situation too many options, they don't make any decision, right? So it's almost like going to the restaurant. Like you go to the restaurant
Diner.
that's got a million different options. I end up just closing it. I hate going to eat with him because every time he closes the menu, he's like, what do you recommend? And I'm like, dude, you were going to ask that no matter what anyway. Why did you even open the menu?
It's being versatile. That's the point.
Over versatile.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, go ahead.
You referenced, did you say you have 2 daughters?
I have two daughters.
Two
They're
daughters.
12 and 13, and they're amazing.
One
It's
question
the best thing ever.
we always find, because neither me
You
or
literally
Carol
took it out of my
have,
mouth. That
have
was a good
kids
one.
yet, but one question we always like to sort of close with, especially for people who have children, or specifically for people who have children,
It's targeted towards you guys.
is if you could only give your children one lesson towards money, what would it be?
Probably the easy one, I just spoke to my kids about this too, is be a good saver. Now, when you make $1, like save, 20 cents. So I think saving 20% is going to set you up for having a really nice, nest egg. And then with those 20%, then you can decide what you're going to invest in, and start duplicating the money and having it work for you. But again, keeping it like super simple is just save well, because you never know, when you're gonna, perhaps get sick, or when you want to go on, vacations. And as much as you can be in a good state, and we've talked about this a lot, and keeping, your energy elevated, it's, going on those vacations, taking the time off, but doing it with ease, right?
Right.
There you go.
Awesome.
Be a good saver.
That's super helpful.
It is. That's
Awesome.
good.
Super basic.
But it's sticking to the basics that have gotten you where you are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, Monique, awesome spending some time with you today. Thank you so much. We knew you'd bring a lot of value, and you certainly delivered. What's the best way somebody can reach out to you if they just wanted to have a conversation with you, or just engage you in some manner? Would you say it's
Absolutely.
Instagram, email? What's the best way?
Yeah. So, Monique at moniquesells.com, and that's SELLS. And then my Instagram is mosells 602, which I probably should change that so more people have it.
Yeah.
It's all going to be probably on there, right?
Yeah. On the link below.
If you're not following Monique, you should definitely give her a follow. She's putting herself out there a lot more on Instagram lately, and I'm loving it.
Yep.
Okay, I have a correction. So this is how terrible I am at Instagram and social media. I just looked at my page. I'm like, Monique, it's not 602. It's Mo Sells AZ.
We can edit it. Don't worry.
Correction, Mo Sells AZ. But I love the phone. I think that's the best way to connect. 602-413-8195. Of course, I'd love to help any of your Phoenix, Scottsdale, Maricopa County referrals, buying and selling, investing. I'd be honored.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Awesome. Well, we certainly know you've taken good care of people we've sent you, so we really appreciate you again spending some time with us. And I think going forward, we just only have female guests.
Honestly, this is awesome.
It's really the way to go.
Of course.
We have six.
I agree.
We have 6 girls in our office, and they're like, "Why haven't you had a woman on yet?" We're like, "It's hard to pick the right one."
Yeah.
So
We're all so great. Is that what you're saying?
no, like
I
you
like
set
that
the tone
response.
amazingly. So this is awesome.
Awesome.
Oh, so great. Thank you, you guys, for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Monique.